Hey friends, welcome back. Now in the last video at the end, I reopened the Power Query Editor to show you that we can dive back into it and continue cleaning and transforming our data, but also because our model setup is not finished yet. What do I mean by that? Well, that is a good question. The issue here, or what's missing currently, is a dates table. A dates table is something very, very important in Power BI when it comes to any kind of time intelligence. Time intelligence means, for instance, you want later on in your report compare this year's sales to prior year sales, for instance, right? Or this month's sales to prior month's sales. So any kind of time calculation based on the measures you have in Power BI, they require a proper dates table. And for that, I have something which you can download from the resource section and follow along, which is a custom M code. M is the query language inside the Power Query Editor. What's meant by that is, let me just show you, let me just open the code I have prepared for you, which is this one here, okay? So I totally get that it looks kind of intimidating, at least at first when you see it the first time, but what it actually is a function written in M. And this actually, all these codes, so this M code, this is also created for all the transformations we do. So let me just quickly show it to you. So for instance, for the sales here, this transformation we have done by combining these three tables, under the hood, actually M code was generated in order to do this. So we use the front end here, so we can simply click on specific transformation steps, but under the hood, what Power BI is doing, it is executing M code. And if you would like to see what kind of code it is to create the sales, you can simply go under Home to Advanced Editor. And now you see what actually was the formula which Power Query used in order to create the table. So there's a function in M which is called table.combine, and then it requires inside curly brackets the name of the tables. Now, all these codes here, which the code is generated, you do not need to know it. I mean, if you like to dive deeper into M to write your own M code, you can do that. But to get started with Power BI, this is not required, because the transformations are done for us by Power BI and abstracted, the complexity is abstracted away because we can simply click on the specific icons here to do the transformations. But it's great that you can see that, for instance, these applied steps, source, navigation, change type, and so on. If you select a table, you go to the advanced editor, then you see that what actually gets executed under the hood. So a connection to the Excel workbook, in this case, the selection of the source, the transformation of the data types of the columns, all this is in here. So if you'd like to see this and like to learn more, then this would be a good option to simply select the table of transformations and then go to the advanced editor to take a look at that. But if you do not want to do that and it looks quite complex, no worries, because as I said, there is no need to do it. You have the interface and we can all do all the complex transformations in here. For our dates table, however, we're going to use something which is already prepared, this one. And don't worry, it's quite simple, because all we need to do is simply copy everything. I press Ctrl A in here, Ctrl C to copy it, and then I'll go back to my model in here, and I'd like to add a new source. So I click on under Home, New Source, and then I create, instead of connecting to a specific file, I go to blank query. The blank query means that, again, I go into the advanced editor, which I've already shown you, and here I can write my own query. And there's a default syntax inside. I remove this, and then I just Control V to paste everything I copied. It's quite a lot, but it creates a lot of columns for us. So you see there are no syntax errors, which is good. So let's click on Done. And now what happens is a function gets created in here. This function requires a few parameters, like the start date, the end date, and the financial year start month. Now in our case, we have 3 years, which is 2021, up to 2023. This is why, as a start date, I can simply type in here, that's the 1st January of 2023. So it's your first, and the end date is, 2021. 2021, of course. The end date is, in this case, the 31st of December in 2023. Okay, so this makes sure that I have the data for all my 3 years in here. And then if I would have a fiscal year which is different from starting in January, for instance, my financial year starts in April, anything like that, or in May, then I could actually add the month number in here. For us now, it doesn't make any difference, so I simply type in a 1. And if you have a holiday calendar, you could also choose the holiday calendar, then this holiday would also be implemented. I don't have this, so I just skip it, but it's also available inside the M code, which you can, again, download from the source section. So this one I've shown you, this one. Okay, so we copied it, we specified the date range we want to create, and everything we need to do now is simply click on invoke, and now we have a complete new table created. This is called invoked function, so let's actually rename this properly and say this is our dates table. Call it dates, press enter, and now we have the dates. And what happened now is that all of these columns in here have been created with this M code for us. And you see that we have a date column in here, which is starting in 1st of January 2021, up to, of course, then the 31st of December 2023, because that's what we specified. And you can see that all the columns we have in here, we have here also the month names in here, we have an abbreviation with the month name and the year, we have here the weekday names, even though they are in this case in German, because it's my native language, but of course for you it would shown in your native language, and all the other kinds of fields in here. So you see there are a lot of specified fields which you can use in order to slice and dice our data. But much more important than just slicing and dicing is that this table here allows us to do time intelligence in Power BI when we create our first measures. So as I said, a comparison between different years, for instance. And the reason why it is best practice to use a separate dates table like we do here, instead of relying on a date column which we already have in a model. For instance, in sales, there is of course also an order date column, right? This one. Now, of course, we could try to use the order date column for our time calculations, but this would not be a good idea. And the reason for this is we cannot make sure inside the model, so let me just untick this, inside the model that we have actually reflected each day in this data set. So for instance here, I can see it starts here with the 23rd of February 2023, and then I have the 24th. But for instance, what if the 25th is missing? So I cannot guarantee that on each day in our 3-year period I have a sale. And because I cannot guarantee this, that also means that the order date that might have missing dates, because maybe we have a date and on this specific day nothing was sold. If our calendar is not complete, so has missing dates, then there might be the case that the DAX, which is the Power BI query, Power BI language, when we create our formulas, that the DAX calculations are wrong. So they give wrong results. So we need to make sure that we have a proper dates table where no date is missing in the date range we want to analyze, and only then we can ensure that our calculations are always correct. And that's why it's so important to have a separate dates table, because with this dates table here, which we created, we are ensured that no date in here is missing. And this allows us then to do or base our calculations on this specific column. That is why it's a best practice to have this separate dates table created to make sure that we have reflected all the dates. Okay. So then let's actually drag this also inside our model view, because I want to use it in here. So that's fine. And for the query, let's actually drag the query down, because the query itself was just for creating the table. We don't need it anymore, and it's not part in here of the model itself. For the query, there is no need to right-click and somehow disable the load, because the query itself is just a query. It doesn't create any table, as long as we do not create some kind of parameters here and invoke it, right? You can also see it simply by the icon. It's simply a function, right? It is not a table itself, so there's no need to enable the load or disable the load on that. Okay, so that's it for the dates table. So again, I'd like to mention this is very, very important, okay? Regarding any type of time calculations and time-based calculations in Power BI, in DAX, you want to have a dates table which reflects all the dates. So there are no missing dates. That's very, very important, okay? To ensure that the calculations are correct. So if you can guarantee that in your native data you already have, there are all the dates inside, you might also go with this one. But as I said, as a best practice, and for all the projects I have done so far, I always use a dates table. And just to mention this, maybe you see this in the future, the dates table itself does not have to be created inside the Power Query editor with this function. There are also other ways to do it. There's also an option even to create a dates table with DAX formulas in Power BI. But in this case, I'll just use this formula here and create a dates table this way. Okay, so as always in various products, there are always more than just one way to skin the cat, but this would be one way. And the great thing here, I'd also like to point this out, is you can reuse this formula all the time. So not only for this specific course here, but also for all your future Power BI projects. You can simply use the code we have seen, go here, just Control-C to Control-V to copy it, paste it in here, as in this case, under new source, go to blank query, and paste it there inside in the advanced editor, and then specify the date range you want to analyze, and then use it in the project. So at the same time for all the projects you have, okay? And there's no other things to do. So hopefully that is helpful. And that's it for this video. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, thanks guys.